Welcome to your personalized deep dive. We know you are interested in economics
Yes,
and you want to get up to speed quickly.
absolutely.
So we're diving into excerpts from Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations.
A classic for a reason.
It is a classic.
Even though it was published way back in 1776,
Wow.
Smith's insights into how economies work
Yeah?
are surprisingly relevant today.
Okay, so picture this.
Okay.
It's 1776.
Right.
Trade is booming, factories are popping up,
Yeah.
and there's this feeling of massive economic change
Uh-huh.
in the air.
I can see it.
That's the world Adam Smith was writing in.
It's the dawn of the Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
And he was trying to understand these powerful forces
Right.
shaping society.
Yeah, Smith was asking some big questions.
Big questions indeed.
Like, how do societies become wealthy? What drives economic growth?
Yeah.
And believe it or not,
Well.
one of the answers he landed on was
Was what?
the power of specialization.
Oh, the power of specialization.
Yeah. This is where it gets interesting.
All right, tell me more.
Smith uses this super vivid example
Okay.
of a pin factory.
You have a pin factory.
It's almost like a scene from a movie.
Oh, absolutely.
He describes this factory where the work of making pins
Mm-hmm.
is divided into 18
Yes.
different tasks.
Wow.
You have one person drawing out the wire,
Okay.
another straightening it,
Yeah.
another cutting it.
Right.
You get the picture.
Yeah, I get the picture.
It sounds incredibly specialized, right?
It does.
And you might think, why make things so complicated?
Yeah, why?
But Smith's point is that this division of labor
Okay.
is what makes the factory so incredibly efficient.
It's so efficient.
It's counterintuitive, but it works.
Counterintuitive.
Smith calculated that these 10 specialized workers,
Yet?
all focusing on their individual tasks,
Okay.
could produce thousands of pins
Thousands.
per day
Wow.
if they each had to make the entire pin.
The entire pin.
From start to finish,
Yeah.
they'd only manage a handful each.
A handful.
That's a huge
It's
difference.
huge.
And it highlights how specialization can lead to massive gains in productivity.
Massive gains.
But here's the catch.
What's the catch?
When people specialize,
Mm-hmm.
they also become more reliant on each other.
Oh, that's interesting.
Exactly. If you're the world's best
Mm.
pin wire straightener,
Okay.
you need someone else to draw the wire and
Yeah.
someone else to cut it.
Uh-huh.
This naturally creates the need for trade.
Trade.
Think about it. You might be an expert in your own field,
Okay.
but you rely on countless others
Oh, yeah.
for everything else you need and use every day.
That's the beauty of it.
This web of interdependence is
Yeah.
at the heart of how modern economies work.
I see that.
Okay, so we've got specialization leading to trade.
All right.
But how did we get from bartering cows
Martyring cows.
to using money?
Ah.
I can't imagine lugging a cow to the market every time I need a loaf of bread.
That would get old fast.
It would get old fast.
Smith points out that early trade relied on barter systems,
Mm-hmm.
which, as you can imagine,
Yeah.
were incredibly clunky.
Clunky.
Try buying a small amount of salt
Okay.
when all you have to trade is a whole cow.
It doesn't sound easy.
How do you divide a cow on the spot?
Yeah, not my idea of a good shopping trip.
Right.
So the adoption of precious metals,
Precious metals.
like gold and silver as money,
Okay.
was a game changer.
Game changer.
It provided a standardized,
Yeah.
divisible
Mm.
medium of exchange,
That makes sense.
making trade infinitely smoother
Further.
and fueling economic growth.
And fueling economic growth.
It makes you appreciate the simple things we take for granted,
Yeah.
like whipping out a debit card to buy a coffee.
That is easy.
But it also raises the question,
What's that?
how is the value of these precious metals,
Okay.
or even our money today,
Yeah?
actually determined?
That's a great question.
It is.
And it takes us to the next key concept
All right.
Smith explores.
I'm ready.
The forces that drive value.
Okay.
He breaks down price
Uh-uh.
into three core components.
All right, lay it on us.
The building blocks of price, according to Adam Smith.
Yeah.
Wages,
Okay.
profit,
All
and
right.
rent.
Okay. Wages, profit, and rent. Okay, that makes sense on the surface, but
Yeah.
how do those factors actually determine the price of, say, that loaf of bread I was trying to buy with my hypothetical cow?
Okay, let's break it down.
Okay.
Starting with wages.
All right.
Think about it this way.
Okay.
If there are tons of jobs out there
Yeah.
and not enough people to fill them,
Mm-hmm.
what happens?
Well, in today's world, I'd say those workers can demand higher salaries. It's
Exactly.
a job seekers market.
The demand for labor
Yeah.
is a huge factor in determining wages.
Right.
If businesses are competing for workers,
Uh-huh.
They have to offer attractive wages to get the talent they need.
Makes sense. But it's not just about finding any worker, right?
No, not anywhere.
Yeah, the skills and experience required for a job also play a role.
Absolutely. Smith observed that wages are also influenced by things,
Okay.
like the cost of living in a particular area
Right.
and the agreeableness
Agreeableness.
of the job itself.
Okay, so if a job is dangerous, super demanding,
Uh-huh.
or just plain unpleasant,
Yeah.
you'd expect to be paid more to take on that risk or discomfort.
Precisely think about it.
Okay.
Would you rather be a coal miner or a barista?
That's a good question.
The risks and challenges associated with each job are reflected in the wages offered.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So,
to sum up wages,
okay.
it's about supply and demand in the labor market,
Ah,
the skills required, the cost of living,
right.
and the nature of the work itself.
You got it.
Now let's shift gears to profit.
Profit.
What comes to mind when you think about profit in business?
Well,
I mean, for me, it's the money a business makes after covering all its expenses.
Yeah.
Right? It's the reward for taking risks, investing capital, and doing business.
that's the basic idea.
Okay.
Smith argued that profit is essential
Mhm.
because it incentivizes entrepreneurs
Okay.
to take those risks,
Yeah.
to innovate, and to create the goods and services that people want.
It makes me think about all the startups out there, the
Yeah.
people putting their time, energy, and money on the line
Right.
to bring new ideas to life.
Uh-huh.
They're hoping for profit, but it's definitely not guaranteed.
Exactly. Smith understood that entrepreneurship is inherently risky.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee of success,
Right.
and many businesses fail.
Sadly.
Profit is the potential reward that motivates people to take those leaps of faith.
So wages compensate for the work we put in,
Yes.
and profit rewards entrepreneurs for their investment and risk.
Investment and risk.
What about that third component of price, rent?
Rent.
Where does that fit into this whole equation?
Rent for Smith is all about the land.
The land.
He argued that land is essential for production.
Okay.
You need land to grow crops, build factories, and basically do anything in the physical world.
It's like that old real estate saying, location, location, location.
Exactly. Smith pointed out that the amount of rent someone is willing to pay for land
Uh-huh.
depends on its fertility and location.
Okay.
Land that can produce more crops.
Right.
Or is situated in a prime spot,
Oh, yeah.
close to markets, transportation routes, or resources,
Yeah.
is going to command higher rent.
So it's all about supply and demand, even for something as basic as land.
Supply and demand.
If lots of people want that prime piece of real estate,
Uh-huh.
the price goes up.
Smith was fascinated by how this interplay of supply and demand
Yeah.
works in the market, setting prices and guiding economic activity.
It's pretty amazing.
He called it the invisible hand.
Okay, the invisible hand, I've heard that term thrown around.
A popular one.
But I'll admit, it always seemed a bit mysterious to me.
Mysterious.
How can an invisible hand possibly regulate an entire economy?
Well, it's not a literal hand, of course.
Right.
It's more of a metaphor for how the self-interested actions of individuals in a free market
Mhm.
can unintentionally lead to beneficial outcomes for society as a whole.
Okay, that's starting to make more sense.
Okay.
But can you give me a concrete example?
Sure.
How does this invisible hand actually work in practice?
Think back to that butcher, brewer, and baker example from earlier.
Okay, the butcher, brewer, and baker.
They're not providing your dinner out of the goodness of their hearts, right?
Right, they're running businesses.
Yeah,
They need to make a living.
exactly. Each of them is pursuing their own self-interest,
Okay.
earning wages, making a profit, paying their rent.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing so,
Yeah,
they also meet the needs of others.
right.
The butcher provides meat,
Meat.
the brewer makes beer,
Year.
and the baker bakes bread.
Bread, everyone benefits, even though no one is intentionally setting out
Yeah,
to create this harmonious outcome.
it's like magic.
So it's like everyone acting in their own best interest creates this unintended positive ripple effect,
A ripple of...
guiding the market towards efficiency and meeting people's needs.
That's the core idea.
I like it.
Smith saw this invisible hand as a powerful force,
Mm-hmm.
more effective at coordinating economic activity
Wow.
than any government could ever hope to be.
But even with this invisible hand at play,
Yeah.
markets aren't perfect, are they?
You're right. Smith recognized that there are situations where this self-regulation breaks down.
Okay.
He was particularly wary of monopoly.
Monopolies, that's where one company controls an entire market, right?
Exactly.
Like the dreaded cable company everyone loves to hate.
Exactly. Smith understood that monopolies could use their dominance to
Mm.
stifle competition, jack up prices, and harm consumers.
Not good.
He believed that in these cases,
Hmm.
some degree of government intervention
Okay.
might be necessary to protect the market and ensure fair play.
So even Adam Smith, the champion of free markets,
The champion of free markets,
saw the need for some government involvement in certain situations.
in certain situations, yes.
It's not as simple as government bad, markets good.
Precisely. Smith was a nuanced thinker.
Okay.
He believed that governments have a role to play
Uh-huh.
in creating a framework where markets can thrive.
Yeah.
But he was also wary of government overreach
Right.
and the potential for unintended consequences from well-intentioned policies.
So it's all about finding that balance, right?
Finding that
Well,
balance.
that balance can be tricky to strike.
Tricky.
And it's something we're still grappling with today.
Absolutely. Smith's ideas about the role of government
Yeah.
are just as relevant now as they were centuries ago.
Oh, I have to say, this deep dive into Adam Smith's world has been eye-opening.
Eye-opening.
I feel like I'm starting to see the economic forces at play all around us.
That's the power of understanding these fundamental principles.
Yeah.
They help us make sense of the complex world of economics.
But before we wrap up our journey through the wealth of nations,
Okay.
there's one more key concept we need to explore.
All right, what's that?
Smith's ideas about trade and the role it plays in creating wealth. All right, let's talk trade.
Trade.
It's something we hear about all the time,
All the time.
especially in today's globalized world.
Makes sense.
What were Adam Smith's big ideas on trade?
Big ideas.
And why did he think it was so important?
Smith believed passionately in the power of free trade.
The power of free trade.
He argued that when countries specialize in producing the goods and services
Okay.
they're best at, and then trade freely with each other,
Mm-hmm.
everyone benefits.
It sounds like a win-win situation.
Win-win.
But wasn't Smith writing at a time
Ah.
when countries were obsessed with protecting their own industries
Yes.
and hoarding wealth?
He was back then, the dominant economic theory was mercantilism.
Mercantilism.
It was all about maximizing a nation's exports, minimizing imports,
Right.
and amassing gold and silver.
So like a giant economic competition
Yeah.
where countries were trying to outdo each other?
Exactly. Kind of like a zero-sum game,
Uh-huh.
where one country's gain is another country's loss.
A zero-sum game.
But Smith saw a major flaw in that thinking.
Okay.
He argued that trade isn't about winners and losers.
Interesting.
It's about creating value and making everyone wealthier.
Wealthier.
He believed that free trade allows countries to play to their strengths, leading to greater efficiency, innovation, and ultimately more wealth for all involved.
Okay, so it's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
A rising tide.
If everyone is producing and trading what they're best at, the overall pie gets bigger, right?
Precisely.
More for everyone.
Smith used the example of wine production.
Wine production.
He pointed out that even though England could produce wine,
Okay.
it would be much more efficient
Uh-huh.
to focus on producing wool, which it excelled at,
Wool.
and then trade that wool with other countries for their wine.
So it's about focusing on what you do best
Exactly.
and then trading with others who do other things best.
Yes.
Seems like common sense.
Common sense.
But it was a radical idea at the time.
It was a major departure from the prevailing wisdom.
Really?
Smith's ideas about free trade were truly revolutionary
Revolutionary.
and helped lay the foundation for the interconnected global economy we see today.
It makes you wonder how things would have turned out.
Yeah.
If everyone had just listened to Adam Smith back then,
Right.
maybe we'd all be sipping English wine right now.
Now, that would be an interesting historical twist.
It would.
But jokes aside, Smith's insights into trade
Yeah.
continue to shape economic policy and debates to this day.
It's pretty incredible how influential he was.
He recognized that while free trade has enormous potential to create wealth,
Uh-huh.
it also creates disruptions.
Disruptions.
Some industries may decline
Yeah.
as countries specialize,
Right.
and workers may need to adapt and find new jobs.
That's a crucial point. It's not just about abstract economic theories.
No, it's not.
It's about the real-world impacts on people's lives.
Exactly.
And it reminds us that there are always trade-offs to consider, even with something as beneficial as free trade.
Absolutely. Smith was acutely aware of those complexities.
So he wasn't naive to the downsides.
He didn't shy away from acknowledging the challenges that come with economic change.
But I guess he still felt like the benefits outweighed the risks.
But he also believed that those challenges were far outweighed
Okay.
by the long-term benefits of embracing specialization trade and the power of the market.
Well, I have to say, this deep dive into the wealth of nations has been incredible.
Incredible.
I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of how economies work.
And that's great to hear.
And it's all thanks to Adam Smith, the OG economist.
The OG economist, he truly laid the groundwork for so much of what we understand about economics today.
And his ideas are still relevant today.
His insights are timeless and endlessly fascinating.
But before we say goodbye,
Okay.
I want to leave our listener with one final thought-provoking question.
A thought-provoking question.
Something to chew on based on all we've learned today.
I'm ready.
Smith was obsessed with what he called a nation's annual produce.
Annual produce.
Basically all the stuff a country produces in a year.
All the stuff.
He believed that boosting this annual produce was the key to a nation's wealth.
The key to a nation's wealth.
So my question to you, dear listener, is this.
Right.
What factors do you think are most critical for increasing a nation's productive capacity in today's complex, interconnected world?
That's a fantastic question.
It is a tough one.
It gets to the heart of what drives economic growth and prosperity in the 21st century.
It does, and there's no easy answer.
No easy answer.
But by exploring Smith's ideas and applying them to the challenges of our own time, we can start to unravel those complexities and gain a deeper understanding of the forces shaping our world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking us on this deep dive.
And a huge thank you to you, dear listener, for joining us on this intellectual adventure.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring the brilliant mind of Adam Smith, and that you'll continue to seek out knowledge and challenge your own assumptions.
Challenge your assumptions.
Until next time.